I did a bunch of videos. Stewie2k, who's was a phenomenal player by that time, in the purest sense of the word, a phenom that broke through into North American Counter-Strike and had, a pretty storied career, had been part of the two most successful teams in the region, won a ton of, big trophies. He had left Team Liquid, which wasn't working at the time. By the way, Team Liquid are back. Awesome. Your Kindar's killing it. And just goes to show, doesn't it? What difference a player can make. Incredible. But anyway, he left EG, managed to somehow convince them to give him the bag and give him complete control over the team, even to the point where he was allowed to essentially tell the coach to fuck off very early on to his career, build the team he wanted, and then he continued to just fail and fail and fail. Was clearly disinterested. Once the project wasn't going to work right from the start, it's very clear he'd lost interest. He was grinding Valorant in his spare time. They were ducking out on opportunities to play at tournaments. Evil geniuses were picking up other rosters to cover for the fact that they didn't know what was going to happen with their team. It was all a bit embarrassing and a bit protracted. And I've been a big fan of Stewie ever since he broke through at Splice. I wrote an article, which unfortunately for my career is on the bad website, so it can never get linked to or talked about. It's on the bad website I worked for 6 months. But basically talking about how Stewie2k was a fantastic pickup. Cloud9 was a great place to develop his talent. I was super confident he was going to be successful. People were accusing him of cheating. I wrote about that. I did a video about that and said we got to stop attacking young players when they come through. Stewie's legit. I've had his back. I drank with him. I was there. In Boston. I think he's he'd always been a good kid, but people change and egos take over. And so I know from what people have told me, he feels a bit aggrieved that I've ever said any of the things I've said. But what I said was that he needs an intervention. He needs someone to tell him what you're looking for in Valorant probably doesn't exist. And what you need to do is change your attitude and put more work into this thing, and you will find your love of it again. You're disillusioned, you're having your head turned, you may be getting a bit egotistical, you may be getting a bit focused on money or whatever it might be, but it can be salvaged if he will just give himself over to the higher power of a mentor. Right? Anyway, that was pretty much what the videos were about. It was Stewie2k flirting with leaving Valorant, and I think I did a video which got quite a lot of views for my YouTube channel, 70,000, something like that, called This Man Needs an Intervention. Anyway, they went over to Reddit. People were on my side that day. I guess you want to put it like that. I was less hated than Stewie was at that moment in time. Could have just as easily gone another way. And, generally, they turned out to be prophetic, and he left. And I hit up Freakazoid, because Freakazoid did some reaction videos, right? And said, basically classic North American enablement. He was saying, yeah, the coach was wrong, Stewie's right, blah, blah, blah. And I hit Freakazoid up and said, yeah, we'll have to have a talk about that. We will. I like Freak, man. I don't care if he disagrees with me. I don't care if he calls me a cunt. I don't care if that podcast, when we do it, gets super heated. We're going to do it, and, there'll be no hard feelings at the end of it, no matter where we all end up on it. So we planned all that. And then I thought that would be the end of the content around Stewie2k. I don't like to flog dead horses. I don't like to continually target the same things unless it's something of such importance it needs to be targeted until it's fixed, a la Riot Games. Stewie's just a kid trying to make his way in esports, and he'll know when he hits 30, he'll look back and he'll know he wasted his career and he wasted his talent. And that's bad enough. You don't need to keep harping on and twisting the knife. You just leave it, don't you? But then, Note, who is a journalist who works at HLTV, and again, super good guy, he wrote an article essentially trying to encapsulate, Stewie's career now that Stewie has moved on to Valorant and is looking for a team over there. Triumph and Tragedy, the legacy of Stewie2k. And, it's a pretty good summary of his career. It is very, very glowing at the start when times were good. Talks about how he came through. It gives a really good summary, but it doesn't shirk. There's the good times. We all remember that, right? The high watermark. Because trust me, any career, no matter what you do, it's like that. It is that curve. Time will do it to you if nothing else. But then it talks about the other problems. It talks about, Liquid's run and how that came down, and then his time in EG. Then it talks about the allegations in the videos I made, and about Malek and how that was coming out. And it says here, when the tournament break got underway in July, Stewie2k announced he would step back from professional play and instead focus on streaming for Evil Geniuses, bringing an end for now to his storied and once fruitful career. Whether that truly marks an end to Stewie2k's story in CSGO remains to be seen. It will be tragic to see a player who was one of North America's most tenured names simply disappear. Somebody who once took the scene by storm through his domination in pickup games, who overcame doubt in his ability to translate his game to the professional level and rose up to the top of the ranks in the region. However, his incapability as an in-game leader and attitude towards the end of his time have cast a shadow upon his glowing legacy. Stewie2k simply wasn't cut out to be a leader on his own, and his attempts to fill the role played a large part in his demise. Although the 24-year-old didn't rule out a return to competitive CSGO, it's unlikely we will ever truly see the Stewie2k of old on the server again. And it's sad because when you look at the reaction in the aftermath of this article, listen, I don't mind HLTV forums these days. They used to be way worse. But there was a thread called Stewie2k Delusional, and there was a lot of hate, vitriolic hate for them. People really diminishing his accomplishments, And the top comment there saying won't be missed. I think that kind of sucks, but at the end of the day, he did do it to himself, and he went out in a pretty dislikable way. He went out kicking and screaming. He got himself involved in a number of, unprofessional scenes. And obviously, look, here's all you really need to know about it. Stewie2k and Malek, which one's got the history of temperament? Which one's been involved in the dramas? Which one strikes you as hot-headed? Sometimes, if it quacks, it really is a duck, So I thought that was a really fair, reasonable article. I think any player that has this type of article written about them at the end of their career should be grateful, because even at the pro level, 80-90% of players just don't matter. Like, they can be good, they can be pros, they can have won things, but they're not iconic enough to be worth writing about. I think if you ever occupy the thoughts of a journalist, a sports writer, to want to write a tribute to your career, even if it does encapsulate some of the bad, even if it laments what could have been, even if it's to talk about the sad waste of a prodigious talent, it means you mattered. It means at some point you mattered so much that out of all the other players, the hundreds of other pro players, maybe the thousands depending on the scene, you were the one worth writing about. You were the one that captured people's imaginations. I don't see how any player could see an article like that written about them and be upset about it. But this is Stewie, and he's just in a different headspace now, and I don't know what's happened. His reaction to this article was absolutely fucking staggering. So, note was like, Stewie spoke on stream a little about the article I wrote and what people are commenting, as well as made some statements regarding the whole EG stint, clipped and quoted below.
Yeah, I saw HLTV release new posts about me. Why are people still writing stories about me? Leave me the fuck alone, dude. Like, there's bigger names out there to use, man.
And so right from the get-go, it's like, why are people still writing stories about me? There's bigger names out there to use. It's like a very telling phrase, right? Because first of all, he's expressing frustration. I get it. It's happened to me. When you are in that little moment where people want to talk about you and write about you. And I just got into an altercation today, like a verbal on Discord, not a real physical. Let's have a quarrel, Malta-style altercation. But, you know, I got into it today. There's like a moderator who's part of the official subreddit from CSGO, and he tells the same set of lies about me, and he does it publicly, and he's been warned by the people, you know, by the other mods who created that. And he tells the same set of lies about, you know, the DreamHack Hell in a Cell, all the stuff that's been debunked, and he relishes in telling people who've never heard it before the same set of lies, because he knows that's like a way to get at me, and it's a way to fucking basically ensure that another set of plebs continue the lies, even though it's been 7 years. And, you know, it's not nice to be constantly fucking talked about. I get it. But also, it is the price of notoriety and all the things I just said. If you matter, people will talk about you. But it's the second part where he says there's bigger names out there to use, as if he's still some sort of box office in CSGO. And by the sheer virtue of writing about him or talking about him in a video, you're going to get all the clicks. You know, he's still box office. I don't know how to tell. You know, someone has to break it to him at some point. You were washed for like the last almost 2 years of your CS career. You were demonstrably bad at the game for the level you used to play at. And you haven't even really got started in Valorant yet. You're out there tweeting at people, begging to do pickup games with them. Just give me a bit of fucking, you know, clout. And his win rate's up, and he's in the upper echelons, but he still ain't ready for pro play at Valorant. It's not about box office. It was actually meant to be quite a, like, nice tribute to you as we put you away. He then said, if people want, they can go to Liquid and ask how I was as a teammate. Every player has got their flaws, I'm sure, but I guarantee what they say is nowhere near to be anywhere near true. So that's a strange quote, because that implies if you went to Liquid, they'd say bad things and it would be a lie. So, I mean, I know. I know how he was in Liquid. I've talked to everyone. There isn't a single person around Liquid I haven't talked to from that period of time. And it weren't cool. The most flattering thing people would say about him is that they really believed he could have been a good IGL. But he even let his mask slip repeatedly, publicly, you know? As I showed in the last video, you are shouting at Fallen on stream, knowing you're on camera, about why he didn't die for you, you know, and get a trade at a time when we all knew Fallen was sort of on his outs at Liquid as well. And it's like, how do you think that's going to play out? You can't even call that guy overrated without it calling an international, you know, without it becoming an international incident. He's that beloved by his fans. It's one of those interactions where you can only come out looking like a petulant child. But then there's this part.
Like, if people want, they can go to Liquid and ask, like, how was it a teammate? I'm sure they got... Every player's got their flaws, I'm sure, but I guarantee you what they say is not even... nowhere near to be anywhere near true. And for me, there's no tragedy in my career. The only mistake I feel like I made is just fucking teaming up with a coach that I never believed in. That's, like, the truth for me. But, you know, my teammates had my back during the time, and apparently when shit hits the fan, no one backs me up, so... I don't give a shit. I don't really give a shit about BGCS.
Right. Problems with that. We can start with the last bit first if you want. This is one of the biggest criticisms I had for him, was just how massively disrespectful he was to the EG brand the entire time he represented it, despite the fact I know from talking to like people over there, he had complete, you know, it was him. They really believed in him. They could have gone a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different times. They could have said, hey, we want you as IGL, but you don't get to pick the team, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, they literally gave him everything he wanted. He was very handsomely paid the entire time. You know, obviously, Smoothie has put it out there, you know, what Cirque and Breezy you're on. Stewie's on more, you know, and it's crazy to me how disrespectful he's been. As I said, it's even just a terrible look in general if you're bombing out of events. And remember, he's publicly said he stopped trying at an event because they couldn't qualify. So they didn't even, and they didn't even get a single win in their group stage, even though it was being discussed whether EG would be kicked out the league. So he was willing to cost them a Pro League spot because he was in a bad mood and didn't want to try hard in his games because, hey, we can't qualify, so what's the point? Massively disrespecting his org and disrespecting every other competitor, disrespecting his opponents, disrespecting his fellow professionals. That is when someone is utterly lost in the sauce. That's like just so outrageous. I would have fired him. But EG didn't. There were issues where apparently he sort of misbehaved in front of the CEO. They let that slide. When he says, I don't give a fuck about EGCS, he's still under salary at EG. I hope people get it now. Because there were a tiny little handful of kids that were saying, you're picking on Stu. Stu's a good guy. I love Stu. I'll be there forever, right? All the people who went to his first stream when it was 10K, 12K, 15K, and they're not there now that it's 1K, right? That is outrageous. They are paying him to cunt off the org they built, one of the teams within that org, the team he fucked up, if we're just being frank about it, while he streams representing them. How cuckolded is this org? What next? I cannot believe he is still there and still salaried. It is madness to me. Then he says, there's no tragedy in my career. What a sad lack of self-awareness. It's almost depressing to hear him say that he just became so jaded, he doesn't think the way his career ended is sad. That almost makes me pity him. No tragedy, bro. It's only tragedy. It's like I said, you are rapidly becoming a poster boy for utter failure at the highest level. That's not what you should have been. And then to the bit about the only mistake he made, the only one that he made was teaming up with a coach that he never believed in, right? So he makes it sound like it's his choice, but then he makes it sound like it's not his choice. It's like, bro, what are you even the framing of it? You teamed up with a coach you didn't believe in. No, the org picks the coach. You have to be an adult and work with him to get the best outcome for the team. And then he says, my teammates had my back during the time. Yeah, and then when they realised you were wrong and you were leading them off the fucking cliff into absolute oblivion, yeah, guess what? They weren't going over with you, mate. That's common sense on their part.
Oh, you're saying that shit? Oh, the Reddit people are talking shit? Bro, I don't give a shit, bro. I really don't, dude. I really don't care what they say. Like the HLTV article where they say the legacy and tragedy thing. I don't look at EG as a tragedy. It was just a mistake for me. I already knew it was a mistake from the jump. With the roster that I never wanted.
Standing ahead.
So he said now, right? By the way, with a roster I never wanted. He had total carte blanche. They didn't get all the players they wanted, sure, but he could have chose any replacement. You can't go into a project like that and it has to be these 4 players at all costs. And also, what a mad thing to say publicly, when, I don't know, your boy was there, automatic, literally automatic, right? Man, if you feel sorry for anyone, definitely feel sorry for him. Walked away from a Valorant career, which, it was going okay, right? It was decent. And think about all the things that have happened in Valorant in the time he's been struggling at EG. And now he's still in EG, still trying to pick up the pieces for Stewie stuff, right? After Stewie, literally got him to leave. Who knows where Automatic would have been in Valorant right now? It could have been on one of these teams that have just been put into this, franchise, pseudo-franchising league, the partnership league. He could have been infinitely better off, but he didn't. He trusted his mate, trusted his boy. They've been together for a while, and he's got fuck all out of it. It's shocking.
If I can bring the NA scene back to CS, would you come back? Bro, it has nothing to do with the NA scene, dude. Why is it so hard for people to understand that I don't miss CS? I don't want to go back. I'm happy with where I'm at. Why is it so hard to understand that? I don't want to travel. I don't want to travel for 200+ days a year. I don't want to go to the same place twice. The same venues. The same shit every time, dude. I just don't want to do that. It had nothing to do with EG. EG was just a mistake. Teaming up with people that I didn't want to team up with and had to do it because there were no other options. I don't want to do that.
I I don't know, maybe esports was never for you, bro. Because, like, I hate to break it to you, but, like, can you imagine, like, I don't know, a fucking tennis player, like, saying, I don't want to go to the same place twice, ever. I don't want to travel. It's like, I'll say this, to his credit, he's right. Especially coming out of the COVID era, where NA players had to essentially decamp to Europe. If you were still in the scene, and you were away from friends and family for so long, and it wasn't even guaranteed you were going to be able to travel and get in a country and all this shit. Like, yeah, it was tough on the NA players the last 2 years, and there's no doubt about that. And life in esports in general is tough. But I'm gonna tell you, like, if you want to be a professional sports person and you compete internationally, you're gonna have to travel. You know, I mean, Premier League footballers, right? You have your game. You know, domestic game, then you have your midweek European game. You fly out, then you're flying out and you're doing 2 internationals in the international break, and you're coming back, you're training the entire time, you're fucking doing, like, you just gotta accept that is a cost to have this phenomenal opportunity that you've been presented with. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But at the end of the day, why do you think it's going to be different in Valorant? Like, he wants to be a Valorant pro. You don't think you're going to travel 200 days a year in Valorant? You think it's all going to be in NA? Like, already, by the way, if I was even thinking about picking him up in Valorant, that clip there, just a red flag. Just fuck it. He's not right. He'll never be right. What a mad thing. The same place twice, the same venues. Spoiler, that's Valorant too. They're going to be doing it. How much of it's been in fucking Reykjavik, for fuck's sake? So, mental. Then it's the Malik stuff.
Finding right dynamics in coach-player relationship. Dude, I can't say anything. This guy, like, basically threw in a threat that, like, he's gonna prove to me that, like, I was throwing scrims and stuff. Like, I don't know what else to say. You can ask any of my ex-teammates, any of my past coaches. Any of my past coaches, any of them. Like, they would never say, like, any of these things, guys. Any of these things that these guys have said. And the difference between those coaches and this coach is just that this coach was like, bro, he doesn't, it's like you don't know a guy and he starts issues already. Like, I don't even want to get into it. It's just stupid. Like, I don't give a shit about what this guy thinks. He goes live his life and I'll go live mine. Like, for me, I don't really give a shit. People can give me shit for whatever happened, but my shit still stands.
So, just as a recap for the Malik and Stewart issues, you know, remember, this was a coach, and this is according to the assistant coach. Malik has never publicly called Stewie out. Never said anything about it. Like, this was Malik's assistant that did this. But what he said, and again, there's absolutely no reason to doubt it as being credible. And remember, on Stewie's first stream, where he used the drama to get his stream going, he pretty much confirmed all of it by accident, and even added a few extra details that made Stewie look bad. You know, because look, best will in the world, he's not the brightest, is he? He said, right, that the guy threw in a threat that he's going to prove to me I was throwing scrims and stuff. What the fuck? That's not what happened, and that's not what was alleged. What was alleged was his attitude stank to the point where if he got pissed off with his team not doing what he wanted, he would just stop trying in scrims and just be really passive aggressive. And Malik said, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not professional. And then they had an argument, and then Malik offered to take him out for a coffee to get to know him, and Stewie said no, and didn't accept his Steam friend's invite, because apparently he didn't notice it. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't see how a coach can handle that situation any differently. Even to have the social skills to offer an olive branch afterwards and say, hey, why don't we go to Starbucks, have a coffee, talk about some shit, get to know each other, try and find some common ground. I think that's incredibly adult, and that's, again, that's beyond anything a coach should have to do. You know, if you play mainstream sports and a coach takes an interest in you because they see a talent there and they want to do something extracurricular, you know, it shows the coach gives a shit, you know, or he's one of those wrong-uns, you know. But Malik's obviously a fucking guy that, like, really wanted to make it work with Stu, knew him and Stu had to fucking work together, and really, really fucking tried. And Stu just slapped away every hand he ever offered, right? Just crazy. And so it's like, he starts issues already. Like, all Malik said was your behavior had to change. That's Stewie's idea of, like, this is how issues start. Hey, Stewie, you gotta change your behavior and be more professional. Why are you starting issues, bro? Like, what can you do with that? Like, how do you do anything with that? It's arrogant and pathetic and self-destructive, but it also, like, it just creates problems for all the people that believed in you and wanted to join in the team. And also, again, there must be people like Rush or whatever hearing this. Like, I bet Stewie never said on day one, by the way, I didn't want you here. But he was like, yeah, come on, bro, high five, we're all going to do it. And then he sat on his Valorant stream, right, hoping to team up with Tarek or something like that, right, so he gets some clout and gets some views, gets some money, and he's, like, cunting off all the people he was just playing with. Well, by the way, statistically, he was the worst player. He was dog shit.
Everyone blamed me, but, dude, half of it was him. And he's the reason why it happened this way.
Nothing big.
He made it happen. The whole first month, he fucked it all up.
Sorry, I think.
And my whole team backed me up, and I don't know why they don't back me up now. Inside, two.
So remember, half of it is Malek, right? Who's the other half then, Stu? Like, in your best case scenario, in your biased framing of events, you're still saying you're 50% to blame. And he doesn't realise that. That, you know, he's gone. Like, he's gone. He's just not interfacing with reality anymore. He's like, everyone blame me. He's the reason why it happened this way. And it's like, you're still not explaining how he did anything other than told you to change your attitude and your behaviour.
Okay, mate.
Can I just bait in the responses? I'll respond, but like I know what I'm saying. I'm not gonna say shit that I'm gonna regret. I'm not gonna stir up shit anymore. Like for me, that's just how it works. Like everyone threw me under the bus. Everyone. There were moments where I'm wrong. My teammates would tell me, but they stood by what I said, what I asked them. Like if I was over the line or shit, no one said anything. Everyone backed me up. At some point, some of my teammates were like, "Dude, I can't stand this shit either." And somehow towards the end, when everything was settling down and shit hit the fan, the same people that were talking shit about the same shit I was talking about, like they just go, oh, like, but I think in the end you were wrong, dude. Like you were wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then they just left me out to dry. Like they saved their own face. I hate that shit. That's fake as fuck. Like I hate social.
Is it possible, Stu, that you were wrong? Like, is it possible? Like, his presumption is that because they said at the beginning of the project, hey, yeah, we're with you, man, we're backing you up. Which, by the way, think of the power dynamic at that time. He's the leader. Some people haven't been playing particularly well, who were already on the roster and could have got cut. You know, not to mention, out of all of the people who ended up on that team, who had the biggest social media presence, who had the biggest following, who had the most fans, all Stewie, who'd just come out of a successful team. Stewie, well, you know, successful at one point. So the power dynamic was off the fucking charts. You also got to mug off the coach. You were in charge the whole time. So if I'm one of them, and I'm like not knowing how things are going to go, and maybe I can get cut or replaced, yeah, I'm going to tell you everything's good. Then at the end, and this is crucial, at the end, when you left, when it was over, when it was all wrong, they turned around and told you that you were wrong. Your friends, your players, your colleagues, many of whom you recruited. You say, that's fake as fuck. That's the fake part. It has to be. The part where you're wrong, in your mind, has to be the fake part. Now, also, when he says that he hasn't said anything that he's going to regret, I couldn't disagree more. I think wholeheartedly, no doubt people have seen this. No doubt people saw the subsequent Reddit thread. No doubt this is doing the rounds. No doubt, you know, this has been shared. And people see shit. And people know shit. And if I was watching that stream and I was a prospective recruiter in Valorant, if I was thinking, hey, I'll take a chance on Stewie, we can develop him, or shit, man, he's got a big social media presence, it's worth the gamble, I absolutely would run a mile. I'd run a mile. You seem angry, frustrated, delusional, egotistical, disinterested. You've already said things like the presumption that Valorant's pro scene will be wildly different to CSGO's once it's established. You've essentially said you don't want to go to the same place twice. I don't even know how I would mitigate that problem. So these are really bad things to be saying publicly, and I think it's going to affect your chances, even if you were to get to the level where recruitment was viable.
I mean, Victor is like, he's very invested, he's very involved in all of their teams, and
that's Victor from Team
my
Liquid.
honest opinion, EG didn't, the way they want to run and their beliefs of how CSGO should be ran, like, I don't think they know, like, how to run it, and, like, they gave all the power to Malik before even anything happened.
Not
like,
true.
For me, that's, like...
Last player standing.
Like, that's just not how it works. Like, on Liquid, like, Steve, Victor, like, when things happen, they're very involved. They involve the players, they ask them questions, like, what do you want? How do you want it? Like, do you think it's possible? Like, we'll try and make it happen. And when things are being ran through, if things can't be made to happen, whatever changes, they'll tell us. They'll be transparent. It doesn't work like that. Like, for me, at least. I don't know why it didn't work like that on EG. Like,
so, again, yeah, I mean, look, Steve and Victor are very good, and Team Liquid's a very, very good organization. But let's also be real. They've dealt with a number of high-profile people before. And EG, the new management, are a little bit younger. They're not, like, as tenured in the space. By younger, I mean they've not been dealing with this type of thing. You were meant to be the adult. You were meant to be the leader. They asked around, got told by other NA enablers that you were a fucking good leader, and you said you could build a team in your interview, and you promised them you could do it and get back to it, and all the problems in Liquid weren't your fault. And they took a chance on you, and you've turned around and rewarded them like this. Even to a point where, as I said, the most outrageous part of this stream is saying you don't give a shit about the org that is still paying your salary. You don't give a shit about their team. That, by the way, I feel on a long enough time scale, I see so many NA pros like end up like Stewie, just pampered, preening, arrogant, lazy, delusional. It's just fucking sad when you think about what could have been. And it's a problem in sports, obviously, which shows, I suppose, to one level, you know, where we got to. But what a fucking waste. What a waste of a career. I hope people don't gas him up in Valorant and encourage this. It's not good for the scene in general. You know, I want you to contrast it. I'll just plug another bit of content in this. But I want you to contrast it. If you've not watched it, go watch the Richard Lewis Show episode with Ye. Ye is currently rated, you know, it's probably NA bias, you know, but even he acknowledges that. You know, Ye is currently rated as potentially the best player in the world, definitely in that conversation. Played on a really good, you know, Optic team that had a great rivalry, you know, had some very, you know, were right there out at their championships and, you know, runners up. And he is super based, super grounded, really humble, and actually wants to use his platform to encourage young and upcoming athletes to stay grounded and, you know, work hard, and he wants to try and change the culture a little bit. That's how we got talking. And keep in mind, I knew Ye when he just joined Complexity, I think. And he had like 3,000 Twitter followers. He's got like 250,000 Twitter followers now. He's playing for fucking Optic. He's gonna get a big money move into the Valorant League for sure, because it looks like the Valorant team are gonna break up. But you know, that's who you want as your ambassador of your scene. If you're a young pro, that's who you want to take your cues from. Not that. That's depressing. That isn't even the Stewie I met. When I think about where he came from, where he got to, and where he's at now, ugh. And he says there's no tragedy. Fuck that. Delusional.